Now, the second mistake that I see a lot of artists and makers making is very much tied into that first one. They don't have that ideal customer, and therefore they have no cohesive voice or visual brand. So, visual brand is all of those aesthetic things, the way that you take your photos of your products, the types of social media content you share, your logo, the colors that you use on your website, all of those things. But then there's also the written side of it and the voice. If you're doing videos like this, perhaps, are you casual with your audience? Are you very professional and by the book? Do you use emojis when you're sharing Instagram captions? All of that stuff has to have a clear and cohesive, consistent voice. And it's much easier to stay consistent and have that voice and have that visual brand when you know who your target customer is, right? But a lot of times I will come across artists who maybe I've seen their work shared by one of those Regram accounts. I have one, it's called Badass Creatives, and I'm constantly looking for new artists to share on Instagram, right? And sometimes I'll see an artist, I'm scrolling through hashtags and I see this one photo, I think this one photo is great, and then I look at their entire Instagram feed and there's just no rhyme or reason. Now, that's not to say that everything that you share online has to look exactly the same, but you can definitely see, if you look at accounts on Instagram that have 30,000 followers, usually there is a very clear visual look. There's a clear visual brand, there's an aesthetic, there's maybe certain types of colors that they often use and certain types of colors that they never use, or certain types of filters, or just types of photographs that work and don't work for their brand and their audience. And a lot of times with newer artists or makers, or people who haven't been that experienced, that's one of the really big mistakes I see. Now, it's not to say that you can't share the behind the scenes stuff, right? I think a lot of people, especially on Instagram, social media and everything, they're trying to kind of blend, here's my art, and here's my family, and here's my dog, and here's the food I ate, and here's an inspirational quote. And there's ways to share more than one type of thing and still have it has some consistency and still have it make sense to that ideal customer that comes and stumbles along and sees your stuff. Because once that ideal customer finds you, you want to make sure that they get it and that they're in, they want to keep following you, they want to come back for more, right? So having a clear visual brand and a clear voice is part of how you bring them in and keep them coming back for more. So, for instance, on Instagram, if you look and you've got those top 6 or 9 photos that they see on the grid, did those look like they all came from the same place and the same person? Like, if you can kind of step back away from being yourself, maybe even ask a very unbiased friend. Don't ask the friend who's always going to tell you yes, 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 and try to please you. Ask that friend who's always going to give you that tough love advice and say, hey, does this look consistent? Does this look like something that if you didn't know me, you would want to follow? Or is this the kind of thing that you're only following me because we know each other in real life, right? Same thing with the voice. Like, I want to know more about your story. The reason why people are willing to spend more money with handmade artists, artwork, handmade makers, is because there's a special story behind that product, behind that piece of art, that separates it from stuff that you could just buy at Pier 1 Imports or Walmart or whatever, right? If I just want some random thing to hang on my wall, I can just go to one of those chain stores in the mall and find some crappy piece of artwork that, has no meaning to me. Yeah, there was an artist that made it, but there's no connection to me. But when you're sharing the inspiration behind your work and you're sharing the story and you're letting people get a glimpse into what inspires you to create in the first place, all that stuff, that message starts making people connect with you, and it makes them much more inclined to buy from you once and keep coming back for you more and more and more.